UConn back at full strength is giving Brad Underwood nightmares from the 2024 Elite Eight. But hey, Andy, at least there wasn't a 30-0 run this time. Let's talk about it.
You are Locked On College Basketball, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, happy Black Friday. Welcome into the Locked On College Basketball Podcast, the only daily national college hoop show out there. We're your hosts. That's my guy, Andy Patton. I'm Isaac Schade, and you're joining us at the place to get your college basketball content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Network, now the #1 sports podcast network there is. Thanks so much for being with us here on this Friday evening. And we want to give a special shout out to all the everydayers, all the members of the Locked On College Basketball Discord as well. So great to have you all here as you are in your tryptophan comas the day after Thanksgiving. Andy, coming up on the show today, UConn back at full strength. Finally, back for the first time this season, honestly. They played with their food maybe a little bit too much, let Illinois close the gap late. It was a happy turkey day for Duke, but their rivals down the road, not so much. We'll look at that. Reigning national champs, Andy, they flirted with disaster with losing a couple times this season, and it bit them in the butt on Thanksgiving. Also, for those of you watching, you might notice that neither Andy or I are in our usual digs, our usual friendly confines. Andy's still at his Thanksgiving situation. I got home from my Thanksgiving situation and I had a leak at my house. So I'm recording from a completely different space in my house while the fans are running, and hopefully that'll be squared away sooner rather than later. But Andy, college basketball don't stop, and neither do we. So we're getting after it. Let's go right to this UConn-Illinois game. I love this game. Standalone game here on a Friday. Number 5, UConn 74, number 13, Illinois 61. Andy, UConn led this game by 21 with just under 10 minutes to go. But I think the biggest storyline probably is that for the first time this season, UConn gets Braylon Mullins and they're at full strength.
Yeah, it was a really, really strong game from UConn. Like you said, they took their foot off the gas a little bit in the final few minutes of this game, let Illinois kind of come back into it. But at the end of the day, I'm sure Danny Hurley will have some words for his team about that, but you held an Illinois team that is widely considered one of the best offensive teams in college basketball to 61 points. I really don't think you can feel too bad about this result if you're the UConn Huskies. Again, as you mentioned, full strength, Braylon Mullins finally on the court for this team. Does not really matter what he did as much as that the team is healthy. Terrace Reed obviously missed some time earlier, missed that Arizona game, but for him to be here, for Mullins to be in the mix, I think one of the biggest strengths for this UConn team has been the depth, and it showed out in this game, not necessarily back, but Malachi Smith was one of, if not the best player on the floor in this game at times. He had 14 points. He had 9 assists and just 1 turnover coming off the bench. And a guy, a transfer from Dayton, a player that sort of kind of fell under the radar a little bit because with all the conversation around UConn was about solo ball coming back, bringing in Mullins, and then, of course, adding Silas Demery in the transfer portal. And so Smith was sort of that kind of forgotten guy in that backcourt. And he reminded a lot of people how deep this team truly is with 3 of 3 from 3, 5 of 5 from the free throw line. This kind of depth for UConn is really scary. And for them to do what they did in this game at full strength, really kind of make life really difficult for Illinois offensively. This is a UConn team that really is flirting with getting back into that national championship conversation after an off year last year. And we saw all the pieces that kind of prove how capable they are show up in this game.
And you talked about that depth. To wit, UConn gets 31 bench points to just 11 from Illinois. Obviously, Brad Underwood needs more, but you score 31 bench points and 74 total points. Anyway, that's just a little bit shy of 50% of your entire point output coming from the bench. Come on, man. That's incredible stuff for Danny Hurley. And again, Braylon Mullins just getting into action. And so, you think about this depth with Smith off the bench, with Eric Ryba off the bench, Jalen Ross, Braylon Mullins coming in. They've got nearly an entire second unit that they could roll out. And I'm very curious to see how that's going to go as the season progresses. But Andy, on a week where we see Michigan rise up in a big way, apologies to you as I say that, where we've been reminded even today on Friday of Purdue's greatness. Houston kind of struggled this week, but one of the things I'd been saying was like, for me, UConn at full strength is in that top tier of college basketball. And I think today was a reminder of that reality.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. And I think from the Illinois perspective, I mean, you're looking at a team that's 6-2 on the year, and their only losses are to a very good Alabama team, but that was at the United Center in Chicago, and then this loss here to UConn. And so on one hand, it's like, oh, that's not really, those are acceptable losses for a team that has, super high aspirations. And, I think if we're truly arguing UConn as a top 3, top 2 team, which I think is very reasonable, then that's not going to age as a bad loss for Illinois. But
no.
I see some concerns a little bit for Brad Underwood's team. I mean, it's sort of the flip of the UConn team where there was expected to be a lot of depth for Illinois, but it did not show up in this game. Their bench had 11 total points. Their bench 3 of 18 from the field coming off the bench. And obviously some of those are guys who still getting acclimated to the system. Like Petrovic has not been healthy for very long. And so I know that's a factor, and that you expect those things to kind of get better as the year goes on. But basically this game was Kylan Boswell, and then almost nobody else showed up for Illinois. Boswell had 25. He was 8 of 16. He was 7 of 7 from the line.
He was fantastic.
It was fantastic. But Keaton Wagler and Andrei Stojakovic in the starting lineup combined for 6 points on 2 of 10 shooting, and then you get 11 total points from your bench. I mean, I don't think that this is like a sounding the alarms fully on Illinois because of the quality of the opponent that they were playing, but they did not look good in this game. They looked good in the Alabama game despite losing. So I think, again, that's a different story, but they just flat out did not look good in this game. And I think we'll have to see what this depth looks like a month from now, 2 months from now. I have a feeling Brad Underwood's going to find a way to get the best out of some of these guys, but you could see where there might be some concern for the Illini right now.
And with Stojakovic in particular, Andy, 1 of 7 on the day. It's like, find other ways to help your team. Like, because he also 0 rebounds from Andrei Stojakovic, right? Like, he did have 2 assists. He didn't turn the ball over. You'll take that, but he was a team worst -16. And I don't put a ton of stock, if I'm being honest, into plus minus. I know you don't either, but it ain't nothing, And so it's like, dude, get to the rim, find other ways to do stuff there. And yeah, like to your point, great stuff from Kylan Boswell. And, one of the things I look at too is it's like, all right, Tomislav got a double-double. Tommy Ivisic, 11 and 10, but only took 5 shots. It's like, I think that's another thing for Illinois too there is like, find your best player and get him more shots, especially on a day when one of your other best scorers, Stojakovic, ain't doing it. Get it there. Don't make it all rest on Kylan Boswell's shoulders, although really appreciate what he was able to do. Andy, coming up for Illinois, though, got several chances in some other big games upcoming. What are those?
Yeah, they got Tennessee is their next game. So obviously another game against a superpower non-conference team, very good defensive team. Then they start conference play with Ohio State and Nebraska. It's certainly not the most difficult 2 games that they'll play in conference play, but 2 decent teams. Like Nebraska's been very good this season. And for Illinois, like if they play like they did against UConn, they don't win those basketball games. They need to turn around and win those 2. Tennessee will be tough regardless. And then they are back playing the SEC again. They got Missouri after that. So this is a tough 4-game stretch for this team. They got 2 SEC teams, their first 2 Big Ten games. I think if you're Illinois, you got to be 3-1 out of that stretch. You feel pretty good. Anything lower than that, and you're going to be a little bit concerned.
And Andy, to your point, as we record here, Pitt is beating Ohio State by 10 just at the beginning of the second half. Buckeyes gotta get back after that one. Pitt's not great right now. Oklahoma, Andy, beats Marquette by 1 today, 75-74. Sooners are now 5-2. However, this is their first win against a KenPom team ranked, inside the top 275. So that ain't it. Big day though for Nigel Pack, 24 points. Marquette though, Andy, is the bigger story here. As we feared what the Shaka Smarts were going to be going into the season, they are now 4-4. It is a rough season. Their 4 wins are all teams essentially outside the top 200 at KenPom. It's like 198th and lower. And all 4 of their losses are their best 4 opportunities at higher level wins, all teams 100th or better at KenPom. And so Marquette, keeping our eyes on you as one of these teams where the Big East is like, oh boy, right? Like St. John's took 2 losses this week at Players Era Festival. good news that UConn just did what they did. But the Big East, man, they look like they're in big trouble. Andy, a couple other quick notes, and you can come back and hit the Marquette stuff if you want to as well. But Vandy wins the battle for Atlantis over St. Mary's 96-71. They are 8-0. Andy, top 10 at KenPom. How about the Commodores, my man?
Yeah, been really fun to see what Vanderbilt has been able to do this year. Very, very deep team, very talented team. And to hang 96 on St. Mary's is unprecedented. I mean, quite literally, the last time St. Mary's as a school gave up 90 points, they fired their coach and hired Randy Bennett, and that was 23 years ago. Like Randy Bennett has never given up 90 points in a St. Mary's uniform ever. So this is a very, very impressive win for Vanderbilt. I know people really kind of put down the battle for Atlantis Field, and I understandably compared to previous years, but Vanderbilt versus SMC is a pretty good championship game. Like those are two top 25 caliber teams. St. Mary's did not look like a top 25 caliber team. Had they won this game, though, I guarantee you they would have been in the top 25 on Monday. So this is team to very much keep an eye on. They have top 65 wins according to KenPom now over Central Florida, VCU, and St. Mary's. They have not lost to anybody. Duke Miles dropped 25 in this game. He has been incredible for the Commodores this year after seemingly taking forever to find his home in the transfer portal. I think he decommitted, committed, he was all over the place, but hard to say he didn't pick the right spot if he's hanging 25 in championship games for the Commodores. Really nice game from them. Jalen Washington, 19 off the bench as well. And then that third place game was VCU over Virginia Tech. A nice win for VCU. The Rams, they won by 18 here. Kind of a sloppy showing for Virginia Tech, finishing third in this event. They're 6-2 on the year. They're only losses are to top 50 teams at KenPom, but it's also the only two top 50 teams that they have played at KenPom, so kind of hard to judge. The Hokies at this point, Neo Avdalas had just 8.6 assists in this game. Very exciting young player, very fun to watch, but has not quite put it all together yet for the Hokies. Very excited to see what he looks like getting into conference play, but ended up being a pretty fun field in the battle for Atlantis, all things considered, despite certainly not living up to the billing of what it's been the last couple of years. All right, folks, we're going to talk about a standalone game, a big standalone we had on Thanksgiving. Arkansas opted not to double team Cam Boozer, and that didn't work very well for them. The Duke freshman made them pay another 35-point performance for him. We're going to talk about that game coming up here in just a second. But first, folks, the holidays always feel a little bit easier when you know the perfect gift. And Omaha Steaks, well, that just makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family or friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to the door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber sale is here and the deals are huge. The quality of steaks is exactly what you look for. It is incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or just weeknight cooking so much easier. And the variety, very underrated. Steaks, also burgers, comfort meals, side, and desserts. It's one of those gifts that truly fits anybody. And honestly, it's the kind of gifts that brings people together. And best of all, you don't have to be trying to guess somebody's size. So save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select favorites during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details. All right, Isaac, we got fun games to talk about here. Less fun if you are a fan of Arkansas or North Carolina, a little bit more fun if you're fans of Duke and Michigan State, who picked up really nice wins on Thanksgiving. We'll start with the ranked Blue Devils picking up an 80-71 win over John Calipari in Arkansas. By the way, as a reminder, this is the second year in a row that Coach Cal and Arkansas have gone out and played a very, very difficult standalone game on Thanksgiving. They did it last year against Illinois in what was Stitch Brothers Union of sorts. Now those players are, of course, reunited permanently while playing for, and Cal went out and played Duke instead. 80-71, the final score here. And it was the Cam Boozer show. 35 points for the freshman, 9 boards, 3 assists, pair of steals, 13 of 18 from the field, 4 from 3. I believe he's the only freshman to have 2 35-point games. And his post-game press conference asked basically how he was able to be so It's like they didn't double team me. They played me in single coverage, and so I just scored. And I love the simplicity of that because having watched a good chunk of that game, that's exactly what happened. Is Cam Boozer just went to work. Arkansas could not stop him. Says a lot about Boozer, says a lot about Duke. Frankly, says a fair amount, some concerns about them defensively front court.
Yeah, and Andy, it was just one of those games where it was like down the stretch when Duke Reed took the lead late in the second half, he tried to throw an alley-oop in the lane, and it just kind of spun in. Did you see this? Did you catch that? Like, it was crazy stuff. He's driving in the lane, just kind of flips it over his head. I think it was to Gungba, and then it just spun in. And it's like, well, it's one of those kind of nights. And I think it was the next trip down, Cam Boozer got fouled and maybe had an and one. It was somewhere right around in there. Mm-hmm. And you could just tell how just straight up exhausted he was. Like, just laid on the floor, caught his breath. They pan up to his brother on the bench, and Caden and a whole bunch of other Blue Devils are going crazy over there. And it's just one of those nights, he went to bed absolutely tanked from this game because good grief. The dude had scratches all over him. Arkansas was doing everything they could, and it just didn't matter. It was just the Cam Boozer show, and we were all privileged to get to watch it.
Yeah, and again, for Arkansas, Pringle fouled out in less than 20 minutes in this game. I think Ewan had played 20 minutes. He had exactly one defensive rebound, 20 minutes of action. He had 7 points and 3 fouls. Like, I think for Arkansas, this was more of a personnel of like, we just don't have the horses. We just don't have the guys hang with somebody like Cam Boozer. And again, most teams don't have, a single player who's capable of defending Cam Boozer one for a full 4. But I didn't Arkansas's strategy against Boozer was, but they also just, you said they threw a bunch of things at him. It just didn't matter. Boozer was able to get it done no matter what. I think Arkansas, obviously, you are a little concerned of like, what does this look when we get into the SEC? There's as many certainly not a ton of Boozer type players, but there's a lot of size, there's a lot of great front court players in the SEC. All of Florida is a front court matchup there. So I'm curious, Tennessee's got some bigs, and certainly Nate Amen's going to be an issue. So I do kind of have a little bit of concern about Arkansas. I've not really hidden that, and people have let me know about that. But this is a result. A 9-point loss to Duke is far from horrendous. And I thought they did some things pretty well in this game. But yeah, the front court concern coming in, and is more of a concern for me coming out of this game.
Yeah. And they had some chances, Andy. You think about they had a 3-point loss at Michigan State a couple weeks ago. They were up 7 in this game with 9:15 to go at 60-53. But from there, Duke outscores Arkansas 27-11 down those final 9+ minutes. And it's like, if you're Arkansas, you go to bed like, dang, if we could have closed, like we win this basketball game. But just too much Duke, too much Cam Boozer down the stretch, and ultimately that leads to some happy Blue Devils and some less happy Hogs. Andy,
I'll be interested to see.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, I'll be interested to see both these teams are playing Texas Tech later this month. So I'm sure to watch this game very much to kind of get us what they were going up against. But I'll be interested to see the JT Toppin matchup against Boozer, obviously, and Bamba for Duke. That'll be fun. Toppin against Arkansas's front court. Be interested to see how that goes as well. For Arkansas, their next 3 are Louisville, Fresno State, Texas Tech. Louisville, obviously a great team. Not necessarily known for their front court, but Texas Tech with Toppin is going to be a really fun matchup.
It absolutely is, Andy. In another blue blood just down the road from Duke, in where they are located, but not in where they were playing on Thanksgiving, North Carolina and Michigan State. You got Sparty taking this one 74-58. Andy, sometimes it's as simple as teams hit shots and other teams don't hit shots. Michigan State goes 5 of 10 from the 3-point line. It ain't a bunch of attempts, but they hit half of them. Meanwhile, North Carolina is 4 of 23. So Michigan State took 13 fewer threes and made 1 more of them. That's about all you need to know. Sometimes, obviously, there's a lot of other talking points in this game, such as Caleb Wilson trying to push things and press a little bit too much. But Michigan State is a team that comes into the season with a lot more cohesion than does North Carolina. And I thought they reminded America of that late on Thanksgiving afternoon, right after their in-state Lions had lost to kick off the NFL slate of Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, it was a nice week for Michigan sports fans, Michigan college sports fans, not so much on the NFL side of things, but certainly if you're a Michigan or Michigan State fan, basketball fan, at least you had a pretty darn good week. So much for the Lions, which is the team that I actually root for. Most people would not expect that, but that is where my dad was born. So for the Lions, not so much on that day. But yeah, no, Michigan State looking this year, Tom Izzo's team. I mean, they're always better in March than they are in November. And this Michigan State is already this good in November. It's a little frightening to think about what they might look like rolls around.
Yeah, Andy, and when you think about it from, the North Carolina side of things, one of their big issues has been being without senior captain Seth Trimble, who would have been guarding Jeremy Fears in this game. Consequently, Fears 19 points on 8 of 10 from the field. That's not even where his bread is buttered, right? He's usually the guy getting everybody lined up and getting Sparty going. He still finishes with 7 assists, 2 turnovers, but also chipped in 5 rebounds with those 19 points. And it's like, I don't know watching this game if Seth Trimble makes enough of a difference to win for North Carolina, but Jeremy Fears is like, dude, I'm going to take advantage of this in a big way. And boy, did he ever. All right. Well,
Seth Trimble's such a tough player for them to not have. I was thinking about that for them because I don't think it makes a difference. Like, I don't think they win this game necessarily with him, but man, just a couple of stops early in this game to get Fears out of his rhythm might have been all it takes. It was tough to not have him in that one.
Well, Andy, another interesting loss that happened on Thursday that I got to tell you, I did not see even remotely happening was the fact that the defending national champion Florida Gators took another November loss, but this time it wasn't Arizona. My goodness, this was at the hands of TCU. Concern brewing for Coach Golden and company in Gainesville. We'll look at that coming up here in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, y'all, the NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on that action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of a game, or maybe you want to ride a hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything, from who's going to score to fourth quarter comebacks, or anything in between that you want to get in on. Plus, you can combine all of those live bets into a same-game parlay. That's going to give you a shot at an even bigger payout. All of that keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push in the game. How about some updated Final Four odds after a crazy feast week? Michigan now leads the way at plus 150. Wow. Followed by Purdue plus 165, then Duke plus 195, Gonzaga at plus 220, followed by UConn, actually tied with Gonzaga, also at plus 220. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Maybe it's one of those Final Four odds. Who knows? Get in on that action. Head on over to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Andy, it felt like kind of a no-brainer to me, if I'm being honest, that Florida was going to win the Rady Children's Invitational, but they let all the children's down, Andy. Florida loses back on Thanksgiving Day, 84-80 to TCU. This is a game that the Gators led by 6 points with what was the latest when that was? Like 5 something to go in this thing?
Like 4 or 5 minutes ago, I think.
Yeah. And it's like, if you're, I mean, obviously you can come back from that deficit if you're any team, but if you're the reigning national champions with all the front court you got back and the talent of the backcourt, you feel like you should win a game that you're winning by 6 with 5.5 to go. Props to TCU for getting it done. Andy, what happened to the Gators? Did they eat too much turkey or what?
Yeah. What happened to the Gators is the concern that we've had about them kind of all season long, which is their backcourt. We knew that the front because it's the same front court that won them a national championship last year. And instead of starting 2 of those guys with 2 of them coming off the bench, they're now starting 3 of those guys with Tommy Houck starting at the 3. So we expected that would be an area of strength for them, but there was concern about a starting backcourt of Boogie Fland and Xavier, because we had seen Boogie Fland starting with other ball dominant players and that not going particularly well at Arkansas. And then we also saw, I said that weird, Arkansas. Whatever, you know how to say it.
Arkansas.
And then we saw the concern for Xavier Lee was more so of like, how does this translate to this level after playing really well at Princeton? And how does he adjust to playing with a ball dominant player in Boogie Fland? And we'll talk about Lee in a second, because Florida did rebound and beat Providence in the third place game. And he looked really, really good in that game. But in this game against TCU, Lee and Fland combined to score just 17 points and shoot 1 of 7 from 3. On top of that, when your two starting guards combined for 17 points, that is not good. And they did not combine for this many turnovers, but when as a team, Florida had 19 turnovers. I can say pretty convincingly that if your starting backcourt scores less points than you have turnovers as a team, you probably don't win that basketball game very often. And that's what ends up happening here. 19 turnovers for the Gators, just a major problem. Like they have to be able to tighten that up. And it's certainly not all on Lee and Fland, although a big part of it is, those are the two guys with the ball in their hands a lot. And I think for Florida, it's continuing to make sure that the synergy with those two guys continues to get better. Or if it doesn't, figuring something else out, because it's going to be an issue for them if those two guys can't figure out how to play well together consistently, or if these turnover issues continue. And then I think for Florida, the last thing too is still that depth. Just where are points coming from when it's not the starting five? Like who's going to step up and be that guy? And they had some players play really well in that Providence game, but again, just didn't see a lot of the depth shining really in either of these two games for the most part, which I think is something that was such a big strength for Florida last year. And it makes the loss of Denzel Aberdeen just really stand out, because that was what he was this team last year and what he probably would have been this year. Either he would have started or he would have been coming off the bench, but either way, he would have provided some lift for a team that just doesn't look like they have it right now.
And Urban Klobsar provided that in both games, both the loss to TCU and in the Providence game here on Friday with 20 and then 18. But yeah, they need more beyond that. And Andy, there's a couple stats that stood out to me in the loss to TCU. You mentioned the 19 turnovers. TCU only had 9 turnovers and led Florida 22-12 in points off. So that was one of them. The other that stood out, where did it go? Oh, points in the paint. You think about Florida's front court and everything they got to do. TCU led points in the paint 44-34. And I know it's not all about the front court when we're talking points in the paint, but still, that's a category that they've got to win game in and game out. And the other thing that is that TCU got out and ran more than Florida did, scoring 23 points in fast break to just 13 for Florida. So those were 3 stats that specifically stood out to me in that game, Andy, that I thought told the tale of how things turned out. As for TCU, Andy, has that game gone final yet? Yes. Has it? So TCU wins the Rady. I'm trying to find the final score there, and as I'm scrolling, I've lost.
74-63
over Wisconsin, Andy. So a nice little run here for the Horned Frogs. Are we seeing something from TCU, or is it like beating Florida and Wisconsin in back-to-back days? What's up there?
TCU is so close to having the funniest resume in college basketball, because they lost their opener to New Orleans 78-74. And a couple things. New Orleans was like 250 or something at Ken Palm when the season started. They climbed up significantly, in part because they beat TCU, but also they're a better team than they were getting credit for. That's still a bye game loss for TCU to begin the season. And then lost Michigan, now the number one team at Ken Palm, and probably 3 team when the AP poll comes out. They lost to them by 4 at home. They very nearly took down the Wolverines, and I wish that had happened. Then we'd be talking about a TCU team that has a loss to New Orleans and wins over Michigan, Florida, and Wisconsin, which would just be the strangest resume. As it stands, they're 5-2. They're still they still moved up nearly spots in Ken Palm since the season began, and that season began with a pretty hideous loss. So I'm very intrigued by Jamie Dixon's team. Excellent at the point guard position for them. They have some shooters that they've brought in around him. Tanner Toulson hasn't been the guy consistently, but when he's been on, he's been good. They brought in a 3-point shooter from Oregon State, Lela Vicious, who's been very good for them as well. This is a decent team. And I think there's a larger conversation about the Big 12, who has dominated this week, not just Kansas and Iowa State and those teams, but lots of teams. I mean, Colorado picked up, they just beat Washington. Like there's been some really good results in the Big 12 this week. And I think there's maybe a larger conversation to be had about that. But yeah, TCU, nice W here really nice W against Florida, nice W against Wisconsin as well to win this event and build some momentum going into December.
Andy, also a quick note for Florida in the third place game. Alex Condon was held out of that game. He didn't start. Handlockton started in his place, was held out for precautionary measures, had taken a friendly fire hit to the chin in the TCU game from Ruben Chinyelu, which, ouch, like that hurts. But it sounds like he's going to be fine and we'll be back there. They're just wanting to monitor it and no need to have him, with all due respect, against Providence. Andy, in the ESPN Events Invitational, BYU beat Miami 72-62, in Dayton over Georgetown 84-79. As we talk, Andy, in the consolation game, Miami is beating Georgetown 54-34 midway through the second half. We expect the Hurricanes to finish off that third place, and then we're just going to get the BYU Dayton championship a little bit after that. Andy, I think I know who I'm going to take in that one, but should be the AJ DeBanza show. Anything of note from that for you?
Yeah, I think the couple things I'll note. One, Dayton, who has been a long rumored addition for the Big East, to decide to open up their doors again under their current coach, Anthony Gray, and 6-0 against the Big East. So some arguments in favor of Dayton there after some strong performances. Providence, I feel bad back in the Big East, but we talked about it a little bit with Marquette, and we'd had about it last week as well. But Providence had some expectations coming into this year. And like I said, the fact that it's late November, a Florida team that has not played up to expectation feels like they can sit out Alex Condon for precautionary reasons and still win this game. It's not a great sign of where Providence is at. Florida won by Providence is now 4-4 on the year, and they've played a tough schedule, but they have every win they have KenPom 105 or worse. Every loss they have KenPom 80 or better. They're not delivering. Like, this is a team that started 48th at KenPom to begin the season. They're 72nd as we're recording this right now and trending in the wrong direction. It's the Big East continues to be the most disappointing power conference in college basketball by a considerable amount. And not that I would have expected Providence to beat Florida here, but it's been a rough go for Kim English's group.
A couple of quick scores of note. Andy, Texas A&M beats Florida State today, 95-59. Holy cow. Way to go, Buckyball. Crazy stuff there. And then a couple games still in action right now. Stanford, Andy, is losing to St. Louis midway through the second half in the Acrisure Invitational. Yuck. And then the other one, I want to note Georgia Tech struggling with DePaul right now in the second half, 5 minutes in, they're up 1. And the other big one to note, SMU, Andy, still undefeated. They're 7-0. They are at Mississippi State, who is not good, but down 9. Obviously, it's a road game there. Josh Hubbard trying to do some work to get Mississippi State a big win. SMU trying to avoid that first loss of the season. That's kind of what's going on right now. Obviously, that BYU Dayton game going to tip off a little bit later on after we record.
Well, folks, that's going to wrap it for us today. So much fun on Friday here to get a chance to talk about Feast Week. We're going to have a fun show next week as well. Talk about what are the big takeaways, what are the big things we learned from this week in particular. Obviously, some good things about Michigan, some not so good things about some of these Big East teams. We'll give you some of our thoughts on all of that next week, and then of course get you ready for the ACC SEC Challenge, and then some really other fun games as we get closer to the first weekend in December, which is usually a gold time for some college basketball games. Folks, I hope you all have a safe, healthy, fun, fantastic holiday weekend, or already having all of those things for your holiday weekend here. As always, we do want to say apologies to the Lawyer family, even though Purdue got himself a really nice win today. Cheers to the Mick Bruins. Let's go Wild Popes. Have a fantastic week. And then until Monday, peace out.